Virtual machines, picking up where we left off, the virtual machines, there's kind of three main variations of a virtual machine on the market right now. Actually, there's really only one left, and that's the just-in-time compiler, or JIT. Sun calls their just-in-time compiler the hotspot compiler, and depending on whose just-in-time compiler you're using, the just-in-time compiler may take the bytecode and compile the bytecode down into binary for the operating system and the hardware, which gives you obviously good speeds, or the just-in-time compiler might function as this more of an interpreter. So in the Sun world, in Sun's hotspot world, and since you guys are using Glassfish, I'm assuming that you're using the Sun virtual machine. In the hotspot world, the hotspot has basically two different execution modes. It's got an execution mode called server, and then it's got an execution mode called client. And when your Swing, your existing Java Swing application is running in the Sun virtual machine, it's running under client mode, which means that as the virtual machine, the longer the virtual machine runs that Swing-based application, it's going to try to optimize the graphical representation of the application. So it's going to try to optimize how the screen paints itself and when the screen paints itself and what events make the screen paint itself, so that the responsiveness of the application increases over time. In the other mode, in the server mode, the virtual machine is going to watch how threads work within the application and how network processing acts and how classes are loaded and unloaded and how memory is allocated and deallocated, and it will try to optimize itself around that. So as a side note, in the Linux world, when you guys start up the virtual machine, like if we went to the DOS, if you went to the Unix shell and you did Java something and started an application, it's going to start, the virtual machine is going to start in the server mode. So it does that in Linux and Unix variants by default. In Windows, it starts in the client mode by default for whatever reason. As far as virtual machine facilities, let's not worry about that too much. Let's not get bogged down with that. So let's talk about the platform editions. There are three different platform editions out there. We have the standard edition, which used to be called J2SE or Java 5, depending on terminology. Now it's just called Java SE or JSE. And that is what I'd like to say the core of the Java stack. Then you have the Enterprise Edition, which is what we're going to focus on in the boot camp. And the Enterprise Edition is really additional functionality to the Java language, but it requires, in order for it to be executable, it requires the actual Java SE platform. So I like to say that EE is built on top of or bolted on top of SE. And then the Micro Edition is the consumer and embedded edition, and that's really for your cell phones and PDAs and things like that. So anybody have a Motorola handset?
No, I don't.
Okay. How about well, yeah, Motorola. I think Motorola, Samsung. There's a couple other ones. Nokia. All used to have micro editions in them. Now, if you were to look at like a BlackBerry, one of the more robust BlackBerries, or the Google phone, they have full implementations or stripped down implementations of a standard edition. So anyway, the big deal there is that the micro edition's just been optimized for a real-time operating environment. And then let's go to the next slide then. From a standard edition perspective, which is what we're going to try to focus on in our core concepts, is really intended to be used to build any type of standalone application, which we've talked about just a minute ago. Enterprise Edition, we talked about that as well. I said it's an extension to the standard edition. It's the bolt-on. to deal with enterprise or legacy applications. And then the Micro Edition is targeted at the consumer and embedded devices. So the only, get out of here.